And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. With the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs done and dusted, we're looking ahead to the second round, and it is ready to roll. The first round was an insane group of series and matchups that had me on the edge of my seat from the opening kickoff to the final whistle, and I'm sure it had a lot of other people's too. They were fantastic matchups. I mean, everything you want out of a three-game series, whether you like the three-game series or not, every game three bar one was just electric. So we're going to review each of those series, give our thoughts on the key plays and the moments from those matches, and then when we're all finished up, we're going to give you a preview of the second round matchups and our predictions because some of us haven't gotten a prediction wrong yet. I'm Andrew. That's Connor. And here is your round one review and round two preview. Connor, do you know what a prediction is? I don't know if you've made one in quite a while.
Guess what? I've also not gotten a prediction wrong. So
You know, can't fail if you don't shoot, right? Can't miss if you don't shoot.
yeah, exactly.
That's
I have a 100%. Sorry, not 100. I have a 0% failure rate.
yeah. That's all right. You save your failure rate for your scarf selections. Why don't you tell me what you're rolling with today?
I went for the first team that's still in the playoffs for a scarf that I could find, and what that meant is we were getting the birthday cake looking one with a little bit of Vancouver action.
Nice. I don't have that one. I
How do
can't
you?
do this. I
How
can't do
would
the
you? How
scarf
would you
one.
say this phrase in a Vancouver accent?
Nope. No, I'm not getting myself canceled for trying to be Canadian. Sorry.
You're not gonna get canceled for doing a Canadian accent. There's
You're
no
closer
way.
to Canada than I am, so you could figure it out. Yeah, I took one off the wall that I think represents my favorite game from the weekend. Um, let's see if I can rock it out here. It looks something like this.
Ew.
My favorite game from the weekend, the
6 and
New
11
York
season.
Jets.
6 and 11 season.
It's 10-7 season, baby. 10-7. No, of course. My favorite game, MLS wise, from the weekend. Enemies of the pod, giving us some
You just wanted a
content.
reason to bring out that scarf. We all know it.
It's a very nice one. I'm very happy with
It
it.
is a
But
very nice one.
enemies of the pod, you guys are getting your shout out today because you guys were a lot of fun. Before we get into the previews, of course, be sure to follow us on social media at the Designated Players and MLS Podcast, specifically on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok, so we can hit our big milestone follower counts. We're close to 1,000 on Twitter, 900 on YouTube, and 700 on TikTok. Please help us get to the line because we love interacting with you guys, and we obviously do this as a full-time job and to be professional about it, so we need all the followers we can get. So help us out. All right, well then let's start in the East and do a wraparound style. So we'll go top of the East, part to bottom of the East, and then we'll go bottom of the West, top of the West. That sound all right, Grace? Yeah, what do you think? You like that?
Grace
I
said,
think
that's
she
too
does.
confusing. Make it
Grace said,
simpler.
Grace said, "Where's Red Bull? Where's my Red Bull?"
On the beach.
We'll start with Philly and Chicago because this was closer than it looked, but it did end in two games where Philly took down Chicago. Game one was cagey, both teams heading into the break even before Philly dropped two goals in 5 minutes in the 70th and 75th minute. And quite at there, you figure supporter shield versus playing game, game's all but over. But a Jonathan Bamba goal in the 84th minute gave them hope. And then come at the hour, come at the man, former Union captain Jack Elliott, who joined Chicago this year in free agency, steps up in the 93rd minute to fire a screamer from distance past Andre Blake to level the game and take us straight to PKs. Both teams missed their first, and then a Joel Waterman miss gave Philly the 1-0 series lead. And then game two might have been the worst moment of the year, both for Chicago and in these playoffs, where Chris Brady picks up an injury late in the week and he can't play. So in steps Jeff Gall to replace him, who in the first 5 minutes of the game takes what must have been 45 minutes to receive a ball that was passed back to him. And instead of clearing it easy, he had it taken off of his foot by Ty Baribo, who would tap it into the empty net. They would also double their lead through Baribo in the 16th minute before disaster struck again on Jeff Gall, who took the ball with his foot outside the penalty area, trying to clear it. The ball was blocked by the defender into the path of Bruno Damiani, who tapped it into another empty net. Quite easily the worst 35 minutes for the Chicago Fire, and it only got worse from there because at the end of the match, some casual fans in the stadium had resorted to using the P chant, which caused the match to be halted several times. Triple G and Jack Elliott both ran the length of the pitch to the supporters section to beg them to stop so they could finish the match. And for some reason, it wasn't called off. But they did end up losing anyway in 2 games to be sent home early. Thoughts on the series?
I mean, Philly got the job done. They needed to. They were clearly the better team, right? Obviously, the one seed going against the play-in team is going to have the advantage. But we've seen so many times that this is a matchup where the one seed slips up. I mean, I think St. Louis, obviously, that's the biggest one that I think of in recent memory. But
That is
they're not
not
the
the
only.
biggest 1 versus 9 upset you can think of in recent memory. I know that is not what you just told me.
Listen, there's a bunch. It's just the first one that came to my head. I
How
mean,
is that you're
Miami.
an Atlanta fan
I
who
was
beat
just about to say it.
Messi?
You didn't even give me a second.
Why is that not the first thing on the top of your head? Is your team doing the biggest upset in MLS history? You're like, oh no, St. Louis and Sporting KC is the
I
first thing that
wasn't
comes to
done
my
yet. You
head.
didn't let me finish.
You're a criminal. You're a plastic, dude.
It happens more often than people would think. Yeah,
Yes, it does. That's true.
St. Louis losing, Miami losing, and New England also lost when they were the one seed. Um, so it is like not a walk in the park. You know, this is not the 1 versus 16 in March Madness type of difference in quality that you normally see. So for Philly to go there, get the job done, not only get the job done, but like win convincingly on the road, felt like a little bit of a statement from Philly there. So I think that's the kind of game you want to end off the series with. It's a good momentum to bring into the your next game. Just you gotta hope that you're gonna get a little bit better of a home performance this time than you did in the first game against Chicago. But first game of the playoffs, maybe there's a little bit extra motivation for Chicago, so maybe you can kind of write off some of the bad moments and just say they were kind of one-off things and not hinting towards a trend.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this shows us everything that Philly's about, right? I don't think that this Jeff Gall, what do you call it? Like this ridiculous, I don't even know what to call it, like mishap for lack of a better term. I don't think that's obviously that's not going to be what happens every year or every game. They're a talented group, right? But I don't know if we can get a read on where they're at just by these 2 games alone, right? They gave up a late lead to Chicago in the first game, and they needed a backup goalkeeper having the worst game of his or worst half of his life, really, to have an easy win in the final game. But next round, and we'll talk about this later on. But they're at home. They're very good at home. They know how to play in those moments. It'll be interesting. But I want to talk more about Chicago because I think that at the end of the season, 2 things you can take from Chicago. They're in a really good place right now, right? We talked that GGG came in, he needed to lay a foundation and reset a culture, and he did that. You could tell from the bounce that this was a different team in Chicago versus years past, and injuries killed them, right? We talked about the Chris Brady injury, but Franco, their new DP signing, Andre Franco, he went down just before the playoffs started, and if you watched him in the games leading up to the playoffs, he looked fantastic, and he made this team click at a level they weren't clicking at the beginning of the season. If he's healthy and if Brady's healthy, I'm not saying they're moving on, but I think that they have a better chance than the way that game 2 went on, right? However, my second point is they're still not near the top, right? Even if you have those 2 players, they are not a team that you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna be up there with the Phillies and the FCCs and the Miamis, right? They have a good to pretty good starting group, but I think they're missing core pieces and depth to put them on the top, right? Midfield help is already on the way. We talked about some of their signings, but I don't anticipate them being quiet this window. I think that they are going to be aggressive. They're going to find the right players to come in, and I think that they're on the right path, but there's a way to go.
I would agree with that. I think I mean they're doing what you had talked about them needing to do. Bring in Triple G, steady the ship, but we recognize that he's probably only going to get them so far. But what you needed was to steady the ship. And I think this season is a clear indicator that if you haven't considered him already steadying the ship, he's very close to doing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love every time you're like, oh yeah, when you talked about this 6 months
I
ago.
hate every time I have to say
I
that.
love it because you know what it means? It means I know ball. Right.
It means your head grows an extra inch bigger every time I say that.
I really should do an edit every time you do that. Just
Yeah, you should.
That'd be fun. Well, let's move on to the first of many three games or series that went to game three, right? And we're gonna go to Charlotte versus New York. Game one, Zaha lets Charlotte lose 1-0 to a brilliant piece of individual skill from Alonso Martinez. That goal, and I hate that I'm gonna gas up New York City here. Oh my God, that goal was fantastic. Martinez picks it up. He dribbles past the midfield line, gets one-on-one with the defender. Just a touch, and a touch around the center back, gets back on the ball and finishes really, really nicely. That sort of move you see out in open space with 45 yards of green behind you, not inside the box 1v1 with center backs. I mean, just absolute class. Charlotte struggled to create a ton of chances without guys like Zaha and Pep Biel to move the ball, and they lost for just the or the fourth time at home all season, right? They head over to the baseball field. They need to keep their playoff dreams alive. And it was a cage match. Both sides picking their moments to go at goal. New York City were more in control at home. Kalina and Freese both coming up with big stops in regulation to get us to 0-0 in penalties. And it took 8 shooters to get to a verdict, but Kalina comes up biggest and saves Ojeda's effort to force game three. And this is where I'm going to have to give a lot of credit to New York City and specifically their head coach, Pascal Janssen, who let Chicago play the game. They were in control from the opening whistle. They just were on the ball the entire game because New York City allowed them to. They bunkered in, they survived the onslaught, and they played on the counter, knowing that they could outpace, the 85-year-old Tim Ream 1v1. And when you have guys like Alonso Martinez and Nico Fernandez who can do that, it's a pretty good game plan. And not only did he do it, he drilled them very, very well to be defensively sound, defensively stout, and to do really good transition moments. First goal comes after a failed long throw from the Charlotte left back. Nico Fernandez picks up the ball at his own 18-yard line and just starts running. Tim Ream goes to challenge him 1v1, gets skinned, and he just runs and runs and runs. Nathan Burden gets back, does nothing to slow him up, and Fernandez finishes brilliantly off the post and in to give them a 1-0 lead right before the halftime whistle. I know, Grace, I know we have to talk. We have to talk about them. I know. I know you don't want to. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got to go down. Come on. That was right before halftime. And you don't love to see that if you're Charlotte, right? You were in control of the half completely and you missed a couple of sitters in that half where you should have been ahead, and it didn't happen. They go into halftime down one, but 5 minutes into the second half, they get hit with another counter, right? They play along to Alonso Martinez, who makes no doubt to double the lead. Charlotte would get one back off of a crazy wild deflection with 9 minutes to go. And there was a lengthy, lengthy amount of stoppage time due to a really bad injury. Perea broke his leg coming down from an aerial challenge, sending all the good thoughts to him for a speedy recovery because that was nasty. But stoppage time, I think there was like 12 minutes, and it would only hurt them because they would get hit one more time in transition. Fernandez would score a second, restore the 2-goal lead, and they would ice the game for New York City. Thoughts? Give me, on this series as a whole.
I mean, not on the series and like it was very tight series to the point where I think if Charlotte have Pep Biel, I would back them to be the favorite in this. But what I will say is I think New York City played this series very intelligently. As you kind of mentioned, the idea of bunkering in and playing on the counter in that last game, game three, I think is a great idea. Because I mean, look who's in the back line. Like Tim Ream is one of the center backs. I mean, Tim Ream's had a great career, don't get me wrong, but he's not keeping up with the young attacking force of NYCFC, and they torched the back line because of it. Yeah, they were dangerous on the counter. Every time it was a dangerous opportunity. So I think NYC, as much as you hate to hear this, they deserve credit for how they played this series. And maybe even if they weren't even without BL, if they weren't the better team on paper, I think they came in with the better game plan and they executed it really, really well. I don't know what that's gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be as easy to do against Philly in the next round, but you take as much as we can sit here and say, oh, if Charlotte had this person, if Charlotte had that, you have to play the team that's in front of you. That's what they did, and they played them in a very intelligent way, and I think deservedly get into the next round.
Yeah, listen, I mean, we're just adding this to the list of New York City, New York City are like the Buffalo Bills. When they get into the playoffs, they're really good at beating teams that shouldn't be there or like are really, really beat up. Right? Buffalo Bills, you look at Josh Allen's list of the quarterbacks he's beaten in his playoff career, it's like Skylar Thompson, Bo Nix's first playoff game, like just this ridiculous list of players that don't deserve to be there, right? Same deal with New York City, right? A beat up Charlotte, COVID Philly, month off New England. I'm obviously just kidding here because
I
I need
wish I wish I had access to the mute button. I really wish I could mute you.
I need to prep myself to give credit because Pascal Janssen was so good. I mean, my buddy was at the game, and we were texting throughout the game, and I just kept telling him like, you guys are playing into his hands, right? He wants you to have the ball. He wants you to try and break him down in this low block because he knows that he can outpace you guys. He goes, yeah, I don't know why we keep playing into him, but they were defensively sound. They trusted their counterattack abilities, and the players repaid him in turn with three very good goals, right? As a coach, it was mesmerizing to watch it play out in real time. But I also want to give a really big shout out to Tavon Gray because when he got home, he took he took all of his jackets off and stuff. He starts emptying his pockets. He's got his wallet, puts it on the table. Got his keys, puts it on the table, puts his phone on the table, and then out of his back pocket, Wilfred Zaha just climbs out because that's where he was for 90 minutes. I mean, it was ridiculous watching Wilfred Zaha try to break down Tavon Gray and not even get a sniff towards goal. Just really, really, really impressive showing from Tavon Gray, and he's going to be key to stop Philly in the next round. When it comes to Charlotte, right, not having Pep Biel hurt, no doubt about it. One of the reasons we were both so high on them this year, right? I think you had them in second, I had them in first, I think, in the East, was that we knew that having this creative playmaker in their side makes them a completely different team, right? They're two completely different teams without him. This series, we saw what they were without him. They had Brandt Bronico playing as a hybrid 9-10, which was just it hurt my brain because you never knew where he was at any given moment. Brant Bronico at sometimes was the highest player on the field, and they did this against Red Bull too. I was at the Red Bull game away, and it's like I'm trying to map out where these players are going, and Brant Bronico is just like, "Where's the ball? I'll just go chase it." And I don't care where I'm supposed to be. And he just goes and goes and goes and goes, right? Um, and that hurt them because he put himself in a really good position to score. I mentioned, in the first half before New York City took the lead, he had a sitter on the 6 yard box and he didn't even hit the frame. And it's like Pat Biel puts that in, right? It's just one of those things where you get hurt with your lineup there. And then we look forward to what 2026 is going to be. I know we have, we're not really talking about the future for the teams that didn't make it, but the back line is going to be suspect. Milanda's going to move on. Ream's going to be another year older. You've got Andrew Privet, who's going to be good, but who's the next guy up? You're supposed to have João Pedro. He's gone, right? Time's going to tell how they do here, but I'm worried about Charlotte in the near future for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
All right. Well then, time to go over to Miami. Let's do Miami. Yeah, because there was a lot of controversy in Miami. They
When
start
is
off.
there not?
Yeah, I know, right? Tell me about it. After handling Nashville at home pretty easily, they then got beaten on the road, right? In this game, when they got beaten on the road, the referee was the center of attention, I guess, is the way I'll put this, where there were a few calls for penalties not given by the referee for both sides, by the way. You've got your AI bots on Twitter being like, referees are against Miami because Messi and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, Sam Surridge should have had a penalty given to him. There were a couple of handballs that weren't given, whatever, but the big one that they missed was Luis Suarez kicking out at, I believe it was Andy Nahar, for a play off the ball. Basically, they both just came together, and instead of Luis Suarez just running on and being a normal human being, he like donkey kicked, I guess, for lack of a better term, maybe horse kick. I don't know if that's what the term is, but like just looks around, just kicks his leg back and goes right into Andy Nahar. VAR missed it, or rather, the referee missed it. VAR didn't review it. And then retroactively, they suspend him for game three. We move on to game three, and Miami goes up 2-0 on two horrendous mistakes from Nashville defenders. I mean, Walker Zimmerman just swinging and missing at a ball. Matthew Cochran, 19-year-old, trying to keep possession of the ball, passes it right to Lionel Messi at the 20 yards from goal. Not great, right? But at the start of the second half, Sam Surridge scored a goal 30 seconds from kickoff. But they brought it back for a foul in the buildup after it was determined that Surridge stepped on Falcone before making his run. I'm hoping you've seen that clip when I asked you this, but what do you think? I wanted to get your thoughts on the Suarez retroactive suspension, right? Should they have re-refereed the game? Because that was a big point of conversation. And then was that Surridge call a foul, and would it have made a difference if they let it stand?
So I think on the Suarez bit in game two, I mean, listen, I almost think that some part of it plays into his history, right? We know that Suarez is, I think you could pretty easily label him as like a dirty player. I think he's done enough things in his career that it's a pretty easy label to throw on him. So for this incident, I almost feel like you kind of have to keep that in mind a little bit, as much as that may not necessarily be fair. But when you put the context of all the stuff he's done in the past and then the clip itself, it does seem pretty intentional. And I mean, he definitely is like kicking his leg up. And for what? It's not like the ball was coming near him. It seemed like a very unnatural position for his foot to be in. Maybe Nahar made a bit more of it than it actually was, but I don't see why it wouldn't necessarily be a red.
Okay, so
I don't.
let me let
Sorry,
me let
go ahead.
me rephrase this for you. So after the game, he wasn't sent off during the game, right?
Yeah.
He was sent off afterwards, a review by the board, right? Javier
Mhm.
Mascherano came out and made this whole big deal about basically saying nobody in the history of MLS has ever been suspended after the game with VAR. Like you're re-refereeing games to fit a narrative, blah 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 blah. And then when he was corrected by saying, "Hey, other people have been suspended for post-game incidences after the game, right?" So Matt Miazga's referee room visit scandal, right? That whole thing. He basically comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, I don't actually know the history of the league, but I'm just assuming that this is true." Is basically the what he was saying, right? But his point was that you shouldn't re-referee game if you've got a referee on the field and a video to catch these things, and both of them say no. Should the league come back and then re-referee moments after the game is over? That's kind of the conversation here. Because I've got an idea on it, but I'd like to hear yours.
I would say, and maybe I'm in the minority on this one, but based on what had happened, I kind of agree with what he's saying. I don't necessarily think they should go back in that instance and then retroactively red card him. I mean, they got it wrong. I think they got it wrong. I mean, that's just point blank period. They missed it. I think you need to be holding your refs accountable better and VAR better. I don't necessarily think this should be something where you go back and you're like, we're going to punish the player for it because our refs missed it. We're going to punish him retroactively because our refs missed it. If it was super egregious, like if he was off the ball and he like blasted a ball into a fan's face, then I would say, yeah, suspend him. But for this, I don't think you retroactively go back and give him a red card offense for something like this. I think that's a mistake. I do agree with him in that case.
I agree. I was hoping that you would say the other thing so I could yell at you, but here we are. No, I completely agree. So, as much as they got it right, I believe that Mascherano is absolutely correct in his gripe. While his knowledge of what went wrong is wrong, his gripe is correct. If you've got a referee, if you've got a video referee to assist the referee, or let's even break it down even further. You've got the center referee. Your referee has assistants. Your assistants have a video review person. Your video review has assistants. You've got 19 pairs of eyes to see this, and you've chosen not to re-referee the moment as it happens. Then that to me tells me you've either made a mistake that you shouldn't go back and you shouldn't be able to go back and fix, or you've now made you've introduced another level of doing it so that you can, again, they got it right, but they should have got it right a day ago, 24 hours beforehand. And because they didn't, I think it is a little harsh that they went and pulled him back, right? So I agree with you there. And as much as I didn't love the Mascherano, nobody has ever done this, everybody against Miami, like very clearly not knowing how the league has, operated. Um, I think his gripe is relatively fair. Now the thoughts on the penalty or the goal called back.
I personally think the goal should have stood based on the angle that I got. Granted, the angle was not very good, It was very zoomed out, but it did not look like there was contact. It looked like he went down to try to get a call, which he was successful in doing. I think the goal should have stood. That being said, I don't know if it's a situation where I'm like up in arms, like, oh, this could have completely flipped things on its head. Like Nashville would have had all the momentum and would have been winning and on their way into the next round of the playoffs. Like even if they got the goal, they're still down. Like yes, it gives them a better chance, obviously, and stops Miami's momentum, but yeah, there's still more steps that need to be done for you to still come back and win that game. So I'm not like sitting here being like, oh, the entire league is rigged for Miami, and they did is help Miami win, even though Miami was already winning. One of the goals, quite literally, as you said, was Nashville helping Miami win. So to that point in the game, there was more help from Nashville than there was the ref.
So I instantly saw this, and my first thought was Vancouver, St. Louis, right? Remember back in actually no, I recorded that episode on my own as well. I keep forgetting which ones you were here for and which ones you weren't, but the incident where Thomas Mueller gets, or Thomas Mueller's first or second game back, and in the 99th minute with Vancouver and St. Louis tied, one of their and I forget the exact details. One of their players gets into the box, one of their center backs, I think, and there's like a ghost trip, right? Somebody clips the back of his legs and he goes down and he goes to ground. And they give a penalty and everybody's trying to say, "Oh, it's rigged, it's rigged, it's rigged," right? And instantly that's the first thing that came to, right? Oh, everybody's trying to help Miami. And I even made jokes to my buddy who was watching the game. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, Miami looked good, but imagine what would have happened if they didn't have the refs on their payroll," right? Like jokes like that. But the more I look at it, yeah, the more I recognize I think they got it right. I don't know if he goes down like that as a an attempt to cheat the referees there. That is not like he doesn't know there's somebody behind him. And if Sam Surge doesn't make contact with him, he can't time it that well to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sell it to make it look exactly like he stepped on me. If it was a dive, you would have seen it too early or he would have gone down too late. He very clearly got stepped on. I do think the referees got it right, which hurts. So, um, you know, I would have loved for them to, quite frankly, I would have loved for them to let it go just for the plot. Like, let's go on and just see, go for some vibes. And I would have loved to see it, but no, I think they got it right there. So Nashville, a good season, right? I think BJ had a very good year. There's a lot to work on. They still have a couple of depth pieces they need to fix, and you've got Joe Willis to what is he going 35, 36 now? It's time to make a decision on him. Walker Zimmerman did not look great in that series, so is it time to move on from him? They got a lot of decisions to make we'll talk about that more towards the beginning of next year as they start to make those choices. But for now, we'll move on to Hell is Real Playoff Edition Round 2 because this one did not disappoint. FCC starts off with a nail-biting 1-0 win after a 78th minute winner from Kevin Danke, assisted by, you guessed it, Alvis Powell, because of course, who else would get the game-winning assist in Game 1 other than the Alvis Powell? Then Columbus dismantles FCC in game two after they went down to 10 men for a dog so challenge from Yuya Kubo in the 38th minute. From there, it was all over. It was not a pretty game for Columbus. But game three was all or nothing, and Columbus actually got ahead in this game in the 60th minute or so, ahead from Jason Russell Rowe. Very good for him to get on the board there, but there was shouts that he might have been offside. Ref let it stand. We move. But 4 minutes later, new signing Brenner or old new signing Brenner. He levels the game at 1, and then what was it? With 4 minutes left in the game, I think he scores to put FCC through to the next round. I mean, those vibes were electric. These are some of the games you're watching. You're like, you're on the edge of your seat. Like, what's going to happen? You've got the fans all losing their mind again. FCC was home here, so that ball goes in, and TQL just blew up. It was such a cool moment to watch. Scenes were electric, vibes were magnificent. And FCC, we're going to talk about them going forward, but it's time to chat about Columbus because this is now the second straight year they've gone out in the first round of the playoffs. So the question that stares down on them Is it time to blow it up? Do they have to start over now? They're losing Darlington Nagbe, of course, right? Is Wilfred Nancy going to stick around? What is the future for Columbus after this game?
To me, that depends a lot about on what Wilfred Nancy's going to do. I think if he leaves, you definitely have to really reconsider a lot of things because I don't know if a new coach comes in and gets as much out of this team as he does. I think there are good pieces in this team. There's good promising players. And I don't necessarily think they need to blow it up. I mean, maybe they find the right coach that can come in and work with the guys that they have. They have good players on this team. Like, I don't know how many times Diego Rossi has to prove it, but he's definitely a quality player. Patrick Schulte in net is solid for them. I know they're losing Nagby. That's going to hurt. That's going to be one that's almost impossible to recreate. But you have Jason Russell Rowe on the team. You look really took I think a big step up this year. You still have Gazdag on the team. I know he hasn't performed well, but maybe somebody gets the most out of him in this offseason. Gets him to fit into the team more. We know he's a quality player. There's a lot of talent in this team. If Nancy leaves, I think this is a very good job opening for whoever wants to come in afterwards. They've proven they're willing to spend money. Even if they have to blow it up, I think there's still, I think the team is not in a bad place. I think they're in like Columbus is not in a situation where I see them falling off like some of the teams at the bottom of the table. Like they kind of always have some kind of identity, something. But the biggest thing for me is keeping Wilfred Nancy.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm sorry. I'm also scrolling back here because our friend MLS Gone Wild, he put a really interesting tweet out there that made me change my opinion because my first thought was you might be past your window, blow it up, right? You then remember that they were pretty injured towards the end of the year, right? Missing out on guys like Abu Ali, their biggest signing, this season, and still trying to rebound from the Cucho move and things like that. And you look at the numbers, and he put together a nice real table. So giving him shout out here, but FCC got outscored 5-3 in the series. Now again, the red card plays into it, right? But you FCC had and again, valuation, a starting 11 that was $23 million more valuable than Crew 96 or Columbus Crew, right? Now, and even outside of that, they still outplayed them and competed really well with them. So, the tactics are there. If Nancy sticks around, I think that there's a good chance that they can run this back with the team that they've got. They have to get healthy. They have to pick up a couple of depth pieces, I think, right? Replacing Darlington Nagbe is going to be huge too. How do you replace somebody like Darlington Nagbe who just doesn't lose the ball ever? I think again, MLS Gone Wild, for those of you who don't know, Crew fan, so he's a bit more dialed in on the stats than we are. But Nagbe completed all but two passes in his final two games. So in the game 2 and game 3, every pass he made except for 2 went to its target. 95.6 career passing percentage. Or I'm sorry, not career, this season total. I mean, those numbers are silly. How they replace him, and again, MLS Gone Wild, very, very correct in this statement. How they replace him is the biggest what if on this team. Because if you don't, the entire system falls apart. We've seen that already, right? We've seen what happens when Nagbe needs to take time out. They're a different team. I don't know if it's time to blow it up for them, but they have to get their signings right this year. If they don't, then they're in trouble. That's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I still think they've got good guys coming through the pipeline, but they could very likely look very different next year, especially if they have a new coach.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see. Like I said, that'll be a big one to keep an eye on. But let's head over to the West, and let's start from the bottom game in that bracket. We'll do Vancouver FC Dallas. We'll do a little U move, right? I'm going to be straight. The West was a lot less exciting, right? Everything that you expected to happen pretty much happened without a lot of drama, right? And Vancouver Dallas
Now,
was kind of that.
with the exception of one series.
Yes, and we will get to that, and I am very excited. I didn't realize my shirt matches my scarf.
Whoa, planned
Yeah, they call me a fashion icon. It's whatever.
outfit of the day.
Oh man, people who are not watching this and are just listening to it are going to be so very confused. Go watch it on YouTube. You'll laugh. Yeah, Vancouver Dallas was whatever, right? Um,
Business as usual.
yeah, pretty. Yeah, that's a good one, right? And what kind of was annoying was they played each other on the last game of the season too, so they did technically play 3 games in a row, but nothing special, right? First round, Vancouver walked him 3-0. Daniel Rios, Thomas Muller from the spot. I think we're gonna have to call him Thomas Puller because I only see him score pens. And Kenji Cabrera. Second match was a lot closer. Vancouver had to survive in the dying seconds through a 93rd minute Ralph Priso goal from a corner, and then they went on. Yeah, they had a couple chances with the last few minutes after that goal to actually win the game. Jaden Nelson had a shot right at the goalkeeper with basically the last kick of the game, and he just missed it. And then they went to penalties. One of the common themes that I've seen in penalties this round is that shooters aren't making goalkeepers make saves. They're just missing the net, right? Colorado, and this goes to MLS Next Pro too, right? Colorado missed their first two in this Dallas Vancouver game. FC Dallas sent their second shot off the bar and their fourth completely over the bar. They only missed two. They didn't even make the keeper make a save, right? And we'll talk about some other penalty shootouts down the line, but Seattle's out because they had a couple of really bad misses too, right? But it wasn't really anything that you were shocked. Like I didn't wake up and be like, oh wow, I can't believe, Vancouver 1-2. But the question I'm going to ask you is Vancouver the real deal?
I think they are the real deal. That being said, I think they're a little bit unlucky because I think there's a maybe one or two teams in the West that I think are also the real deal. Like in terms of the teams left in the playoffs, I think they're, in my opinion, I think they're probably a top two team. Like I do think they are legit. This is a talented team who got off to a really hot start in the season. And I feel like there were definitely points in time where I'm like, all right, they're gonna cool off. They're gonna fall back to typical Vancouver levels in the West, but they haven't. I mean, they were what, a point off from the Shield? I know this wasn't a super strong Shield year, but they've been consistently good throughout the whole year. And then round one of the playoffs, they haven't proven otherwise. They took care of business against Dallas. They got the job done. They made it look, I mean, granted, they scored a 93rd minute equalizer in game two. So, Dallas put up some fight, but relatively speaking, they won it in two. So they made it look relatively easy. Um, I don't see any way that you can say they're not the real deal.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, the reason that they had to get lucky in that last game is because Dallas just packed the box, right? I mean, Vancouver had 11 shots, 58% possession, uh, you know, just dominated the game really. And it was because Vancouver and Dallas did this in the last game of the season, and they also did it in the end of the first half of this game where they just packed it in and were like, break us down, I dare you. And that's going to be difficult for any team. And they did their job, right? But what does FC Dallas do moving on here? Like, do they have a foundation to build off of? Luciano Costa's gone and they got significantly better after he left. Where does FC Dallas go from here? Because I don't want to say I struggle to see a future with Eric Quill being successful because I think he's done well. But right now Dallas doesn't jump off to me as a team like Chicago, for example, where I've got hope that they're going to get this right. Dallas just feels kind of like they're going to stay where they're at and be fighting for the bottom, the bottom of the playoffs if they don't make major changes. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think they went for the Lucho Acosta experiment this year. Worthwhile go for that. I mean, uh, Lucho has been one of the best players in the league in the past couple of seasons. So I think you had to take a shot if he was on the table. It did not work out in the slightest. And I think that caused a lot of issues at the start of the season. And I think, as you mentioned, they picked up some momentum towards the end of the year. But I do agree with you. I think right now they feel like a team that's kind of stuck where they are in this, like, call it mid-table mediocrity. That's just going to see them squeak into the playoffs probably each year or the play-in and kind of top out at that. Like, I think they need to properly put pieces around Musa if they're going to take the next steps forward and really challenge for the top of the West. But if they ran it back and didn't make a lot of changes, I don't see them making much further progress up the West.
Yeah, and I can't put my finger on what I think they're missing. And that's the problem. Is like I think they just have a lot of really average players and nobody's going to take them over the top. right? You got one really good center back in Urokide. The goalkeeper position, right? Martin Paz didn't finish this season. He wasn't the starter at the end of the year. What do you do with him? You got guys like Nolan Norris who might step up and be, a big piece, but is he a difference maker? I don't know. Do you want to go back and try to run it back with an attacking midfield player? What's Paxton Pomykal going to do? I mean, there's tons of questions with this team, and I'm really interested to see how they approach it and what Eric Quill wants to do with it because, I mean, again, I think it was very impressive that he was able to figure it out at the end of the season. But even when he was doing that, I mean, they were winning games. It just felt like it just didn't feel like they were, a team that you were like, yeah, they can go for a nice, like, and I think Seattle, right? Seattle 2016, where it was like they were out of the playoffs. They get a couple signings, they get really hot, and you're like, oh, Seattle might do something here. I don't think that was ever crossing our mind for FC Dallas, which again, I don't know what that needs to do. Or who needs to make that decision and make a change, right? Do we need a high level wing player to flank Musa? Do you need a 10 to set him up? I don't know. So I'm really interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I think they have some flexibility with their salary cap, so
Yeah, yeah,
there's opportunity for them.
yeah. And they just got to get it right. Like, again, that's kind of the big thing. If they don't, you're going to see them right back where they were, if not lower. And it'd be interesting to see where that goes. So another one of the more expected results, LAFC in Austin. It's high flying LAFC. It's low scoring Austin. Two games, combined score of 6-2, 2-1 in the first match, 4-1 in the second match. In the first match, Austin contained Sun and Buanga, right? They forced a couple of, they've prevented them from doing anything massive at all. But by game two, the floodgates opened and they combined for three of the four goals in that game. Again, not something that we woke up. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Question: Anybody stopping LAFC this year?
I was just gonna say, we had just talked about Vancouver and being a legit team in the playoffs, and I talked about them being a top two team. The reason I specified top two is because I think LAFC right now is my favorite. I think they are carrying the momentum. They look like a team that has call it the Seattle effect, where you add someone mid-season and then it just takes your team to another level going into the playoffs. And that really feels like that's the case with them adding Sun mid-season for this team because they've just hit new levels and they feel like they've got all the momentum in the world behind them right now. And granted, I don't think Austin was a strong team. I feel like they were one of the weaker, if not maybe the weakest team in the playoffs, but they made it look so that they made it look easy. Like they went out there and they got the job done way easier than probably any other team in the playoffs did for round one. So to me, I think they're the favorites. They feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it, in next episode when we talk about our predictions. But I said it from the start that I don't see anybody stopping Bouanga. I don't see anybody stopping Son, especially I don't see them stopping them together. And I mean, there's not a defensive team left that I can say with any sort of certainty that's like, yep, it's over, right? And I just think like, no spoilers or anything, but my final has them going up against Miami in my bracket. And I just think, man, imagine what they're going to do to that Miami back line in transition. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal, right? It's going to be Messi. Messi's going to score a dribble goal through like nine players. And the next time he tries it, they're just going to kick it to Bouanga. He's just going to run really fast and be like, goal, goal, goal. It's good. The MLS final is going to be 6-5. It's going to be ridiculous.
And it'll be amazing.
It'll be great. We'll love it. I don't know. I don't know if I can find anybody who can stop LAFC again, right? I think this is going to be a really good run for them. I've got a lot of confidence in their ability to play. And again, their matchups against who's left in the West is really good. Austin, on the other hand, now have to face a couple of difficult decisions. I just saw a tweet before we jumped on saying that their big record signing, Uzuni, is already looking for a way out. Is there, where does Austin go from here? You had Brandon Vasquez, who was injured, late in the season, or early, midway through the season, he went down. Designated player spot on Bukhari, who gave you 8 goal contributions all season. Not good enough, right? Talked about Ozuni, who played relatively well, but he had 9 goal contributions in 27, right? The team just didn't score a lot of goals, and it hurt them towards the end of the year. Do they have to blow it up and try it again? Is this something where you're gonna, trust them? You had a guy like Owen Wolf at 20 years old who balled out this year. He looked great. Do you build around him? Where do you see them going?
I feel extreme saying this, but I do feel like I'm on the blow it up train. Because I just feel like whatever direction they're heading in right now, it's just not great. I mean, they got into the playoffs solely on the fact that they had a solid defensive team because this team just could not score goals. And it showed in the playoffs too. They scored 2 goals across 2 games. You're not beating LAFC if you're scoring 2 goals against across 2 games. You're
You're not
just
beating a
not.
lot of teams if you only score 2 goals in 2 games.
Right, exactly. But I mean, you're definitely not beating an LAFC. Those guys put up a lot of goals, and you just did not, as you mentioned, you did not get the production you needed out of any of your designated players this year. Vasquez, Uzuni, or Bukhari. Your biggest production came out of Owen Wolf, and it's hard to keep guys like that around in the league. There's a good chance that they're going to have to cash in on him, and he'll be out of here. If that's
Yeah.
the case, and Uzuni wants to be out, you got to blow it up. You just you gotta restart. Um, I mean Vasquez and Uzuni had a combined 20 xG and they scored 11 goals across the two of them. Like that's terrible. Maybe you could read that as a sign of, oh, we were doing the right things in the build up and we just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. But like that's what you need your designated players to do. That's why you pay them the money. They gotta put the ball in the back of the net. They didn't do it. I don't think I think you give Vasquez like another shot, but if Uzuni wants out, I think you take that as an opportunity to move on.
I'm gonna give Brandon Vasquez a pass, right? Injured. He only played 1,500 minutes. Ozuni hit 2K. My problem is Ozuni's 30. If he wants to go, have a good one, right? I'm
Mhm.
not going to keep you here unhappy when you're going to just start declining. I think that we were relatively nice when it came to our reaction to the Brandon Vasquez signing in Austin. Brandon Vasquez balled out at FCC, and then he went down to Mexico and he just didn't do much. I just don't know if he's the guy anymore, and this injury might bring him back. I'm not saying you got to blow everything up and get a whole new group in here, but I think it's time to start looking at other people who are going to start taking a load. Like I said, your designated players, 14 goals across a combined give or take 5,000 minutes. Oh God, that hurts just to look at, right? You need better production, and you need players who are going to step up and want to be there, right? So again, harping back on this Azuni thing, if Azuni wants to go, have a good one. I think you also take the chance. I think Bukhari was talking about going back to Red Star at some point. Have a good one, right? Reinvest that because at the end of the day, if they're not getting the job done, you could just sit there and try and figure it out, or you could recoup your losses, reinvest, and try and get somebody who's going to make an impact like that, right? Because I think one of the things that we've seen, and to go to the very extreme example, right? Xherdan Shaqiri, right? Comes in, big price tag, supposed to be this big guy, gets unhappy, starts treating it like it's a walk in the park, doesn't have to try, and then puts up underwhelming number after underwhelming number and hold you back for 5 years. Do you want to sit on that? Probably not.
I don't think this is considering how long this episode has gone on. I don't think this is maybe the time and place to have this conversation, but I think we may need to have a conversation on Brandon Vasquez. Is
Oh,
is he on one season wonder watch?
I'm telling you, and I think he had 2 good years at FCC, right? Didn't he have a second? It was, or maybe like a year and a half.
2023, he had 2,300 minutes and 8 goals. So it's really looking like it was 2022 and bust that side of that.
And
Now, what I will say, in Monterrey in the 23-24 season, he didn't play a lot, but when he did, he was good. He had 6 goals in 700 minutes.
yep,
But it's maybe it's I don't know how much more time you give him, but you gotta get more out of him.
somebody
Ever
say
since
fraud
2022,
watch.
it's been disappointing.
Fraud watch Brandon Vasquez. That might be a bold take for somebody down the line.
Well, not bold anymore.
It's pretty bold. You're right. This isn't the time to talk about that. We could go on for a while. We should probably do a preview episode or part of our preview episode in 26, players on Fraud Watch. That could be fun. But what's even more fun, we are going to talk about the greatest game in round one, or the greatest series in round one, and that is Minnesota Seattle. Without a doubt, the craziest series in the West and in the whole playoffs, to be fair. Two of the three games went to penalties, both of which Minnesota won. Seattle at home in game two made it interesting after they broke down Minnesota handedly, scoring twice in the first 20 minutes and once more at the 40th before Minnesota scored two goals in first half stoppage time to make it an interesting game. And then an 86-minute Obed Vargas goal seals the deal and forces game three, right? Game three was BANANAS bananas, people. Bananas. Seattle come out hot, two goals in the first 10 minutes, and you're like, does Minnesota know we're playing a game here? Joaquin Pereira gets one back with a killer free kick 10 minutes later. And 20 minutes after that, Joseph Rosales is sent off for a headbutt off the ball to a Seattle player that had no business being. I mean, what he was thinking, I have no idea. But he gets tripped up on a foul. Referee doesn't give it. I think Jesus Ferreira kind of gives it to him as he's on the ground, gets up and just throws his head into his face. Easiest red card of the referee's life. Off he goes. So now you're thinking you're down a man, you're down a goal, playoff hopes are over, right? Doesn't matter you're home, who cares? And then in the 62nd minute, Jefferson Diaz pops up and says, "Hey, here's a goal for set piece, baby. Here we go." You're like, "Oh, this is interesting." Then 10 minutes later, Anthony Markanich comes on and gives Minnesota the lead with 2 minutes with a man down. They're up 3-2, and they're trying to hold on until Jordan Morris, with 2 minutes left, converts a scrummy ball off a corner kick that bounces around, hits tens people, and he taps it into the goal to get it to penalties. But this is where it gets fun. In the 85th minute before that goal goes in, Andrew Thomas gets subbed on for Stephen Fry, hoping that they could get to penalties. And they did. They got to penalties. In the first shot, Andrew Thomas guesses correctly and dives to the left, which is where Joaquin Pereira took his shot. Joaquin Pereira misses the goal. Again, common theme. Misses the goal completely. And Andrew Thomas pops up and it looks like he's celebrating, waving his hand. But in fact, he's calling over the medical team because on the dive attempt, he broke his finger. Now remember, he got subbed onto this game. So no sub goalkeeper could come in. And now you're sitting here thinking, do we let a guy play with a broken finger, or do we put a field player in goal for a must-win penalty shootout in this match? I mean, talk about a nightmare scenario. They decide to wrap up his hand to the point where all he had was a club, basically, and throw him back in the goal. He then makes two saves with a broken left hand or broken finger on his left hand, thinking this is it. This is the storybook ending he needed. On both of the times he made a save, the player that came up and took a shot for Seattle did not convert. The first one hit the post. The second one, St. Clair made a save. Unbelievable scenes. It got all the way down to goalkeeper shooting. Dane St. Clair tucks his away while Andrew Thomas rings his off the bar, and Seattle go home. I have never seen anything like that since the 2019, 2020 Orlando City, New York City shootout with Schlegel in goal. I've never seen anything crazier than that moment right there, and this one may top it. Thoughts on the game while we're here?
I will say, firstly, this definitely does not top the NYC game. Nothing will top the NYC game. That was the most bizarre scenario ever. That being said, this was a fantastic game, one that really Minnesota had no business being in. Seattle absolutely shot themselves in the foot. All day, every day, and twice on Sunday, they should have been winning this game and through to the next round. They had like, I think SofaScore had Seattle on 3 XG and Minnesota 1. So they had 3 times the XG as Minnesota. You absolutely should have been in the next round. And it speaks to the fact that Seattle has not been the same team since Rui Diaz kind of was out of spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just have not been able to find that clinical finisher that can just put shots away for them. And it showed. And it cost them here. It cost them the playoffs. They absolutely should have had like probably 5 goals at least this game, and they should have been moved on to the next round. They shouldn't have even given Minnesota a chance, regardless of the poor defending that let them back into the game. They shouldn't have even given Minnesota a chance. They should have tucked away many more chances, but they didn't. And then it's so interesting. to not see Stephen Fry as your PK guy. Because like I feel like he like has he not proven it? I know he's older now, but like in the past, like there's almost nobody I'd want in the goal more than Stephen Fry for penalties. So weird to see the baton being switched off there. But Andrew Thomas did a solid job in goal. But yeah, goes back to your point of do these guys know how to take penalties? Because oh my God, the amount of misses, the amount of penalty misses, like forget saves, just flat out misses is nuts. In both penalty shootouts, Seattle's missed a ton.
Yeah.
Let me see, I can probably get the number, but it was like they missed three in the first one, and then they missed another four. They missed seven penalties across the two PKs.
Yeah.
Like that's nuts.
And
They
again,
it was
emphasis on miss, by the way, because a lot of them weren't saved. They were generally just straight up missed.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, if you're going to do that, you don't deserve to move on to the next round. So credit to
100%.
Minnesota for getting the job done, scoring your penalties, and moving on to the next round in a situation where they were definitely on the outside looking in.
Well, then the question I have, we've talked a lot about Seattle Sounders and how their window with the crew is, is closing, right? João Paulo and Jordan Morris, and you've already seen, Stephen Fry, and you've already seen Rui Diaz move on. Is their window closed, or how much time do they have left?
I don't think their window's closed, but I see them in a Dallas type of situation here where I think they're kind of stuck at the moment. They're I think they're going to be a competitive team in the West every year. I think they'll finish a little bit ahead of where like Dallas will typically finish, maybe like anywhere between like third and sixth in the West. But I just don't know if they have the juice to like shoot them up to the top of the West. Like I always think there's gonna be a team that's just gonna be a little bit better than them each year and keep them from being the top team in the West. At least until, in my opinion, until they can find that clinical goal scorer. And I just don't think they have it. But I really like what the team is on paper. I really just feel like that's the last missing piece for them is just finding you don't necessarily have to be like, okay, find your next Rui Diaz, but like imagine a guy like Milan Alowski on this team. I feel like Alowski would go crazy. Like the guy is a great finisher. And I think there's tons of guys behind him if he's the striker for Seattle that would create chances for him. I think they need until they find that guy, I feel like they're going to kind of be capped at how far they can take this team.
I disagree. I think it's done. I think it's time for a new group to step up. And again, this is all hyperbole, really, because it's MLS. You could be the ninth best team and still go on a run, right? But I think it's time to at least change the guard, right? I think Stephen Fry's going to go. I think his time's up. I think it's Andrew Thomas's goal to keep. Yamar probably has a couple more years to stick around. I think he'll be okay, but him and Jackson Reagan will be fine. But you look at other guys, right? You've got Christian Roldan's hitting 30. João Paulo's 34. He barely, I don't think he made an appearance in the playoffs. Yeah, he didn't play at all in the playoffs. Whether and in MLS he made 11 appearances. João Paulo's time is, and I'm sure there were injuries involved. We're not going to take the time because it's a long episode already. Um, I'm sure that there are injuries involved with that and things like that, but that crew that you ran it back with, and even Albert Rusnak, who's great this year, right? Albert Rusnak has plenty of time left, but Jordan Morris is getting up there and wasn't as successful as some people wanted him to be. I think that they're not going to fall out and be a wooden spoon sort of team. But I'm not shocked if you see them start fighting for, playing game stuff and if they don't get these transfers right. I mean, let's be straight up about it, right? Their big moves this year or the last two couple of years were Jesus Ferreira, who was good, Paul Arriola, who got hurt, De La Vega, who got hurt. They bring in Ryan Kent halfway through the season. What do you do? 3 assists, no goals, right? It feels like their transfer policy hasn't been super successful. Excuse me, which gives me some reservation on if they can find the pieces to supplement this team to keep them going forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh, I think the thing for me though is I feel like they always find good youth players. And I think any team that has the ability continuously do that is going to find ways to be successful. And we know Seattle's not afraid to spend some money. So I feel like if you brought the same team out next year, I don't think that they're dropping off that much. I think they probably stay around where they are now. Even though some of the guys are getting closer to being older. I think I agree Fry is probably on his way out, but it's not like the other guys are that much older. Like outside of VAMR, they're maybe getting to like
Yeah,
32 years old.
yeah. Well, like I said, for me, it's wrapping around the what we originally called the big four, right? Fry, Yamar, Jao Paulo, and Rui Diaz were the four that we were always like, these are the guys we have to keep an eye on. And slowly but surely, you're seeing them tick off, right? So, is the next group coming up going to be that next group, right? Obed Vargas could be on his way out, right? And he's huge for this group. Are they able to replace him properly? I don't know. And that's going to be the big question is if, at the end of the season, I think our friends over at Rave Green TV just posted the list of players that they have to make decisions on. And it is a lengthy, lengthy list. Obed Vargas, which is a club option. So I'm assuming they pick it up and try and sell him before they lose him on a free. Nuhu, club option. Ryan Kent, club option. Paul Rothrock doesn't have any option. Yamar has a club option. Danny Masowski has a club option. De Rosario's kid has 2-year club option. Jao Paulo has a club option. Do you pick that up? I don't know. Right. And then a couple of, Stephen Fry doesn't have an option, you know? So you've got this, the group of players that you're talking about is about to be up. What do we do? So it's something to keep an eye on. And again, we've been going, this is going to be a very long episode. So if you made it this far, awesome. Appreciate you guys. Let's finish up with the last game of the playoff first round, which is San Diego Portland. Also went to 3 games. Portland tried to hold off this high scoring attack, but they ended up conceding 8 goals over 3 matches and moving on through penalties at home in a 2-2 match at home, even just to force a game 3. It was never going to be easy, but they got beaten down 4-0 away from home in game 3 to seal their fate. San Diego, they like to score goals, and it comes from one man. It's Andres. It doesn't come from one guy, but it's mainly off of the play of one guy, Andres Dreyer. Can Andres Dreyer take these guys all the way?
I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like LAFC and Vancouver are a bit better in my opinion, but San Diego after game two, it really felt like we were about to get another year of a one seed going down. You know, you hold your breath on that one. I think this, okay, I think this one was a little bit more comparable to a St. Louis situation where it was an unexpected rise to the West in your first season, and then coming into the playoffs, you trip up. But they really had a good statement in game three. They came out and they smacked Portland. I know there was a red card, but that was after all 4 goals were scored. So, you know, they beat them with 11 on 11.
Yep.
Um, a good statement win for them. I think they set up well against Minnesota in the next round, but I still feel like they are, in my opinion, a little bit behind Vancouver or LAFC, whoever comes out of that game, in that other Western Conference game. I think Dreyer is fantastic and he's going to be a handful for whatever team is going against San Diego. But I think they're also like on the flip side, they're going to struggle to hold and contain guys like Buanga or Sun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to spoil anything because we're in next episode. Make sure you subscribe to see it. We'll share our thoughts on that. But I do think that there are limitations to the way they play the game, and it is tough for an expansion team to be that good that early, right? Portland, on the other hand, they just weren't that good this year, were they? They did get into the playoffs. They won their playing game, whatever, but just really didn't do much, did they? And now you got to figure out what's next, right? So -7 goal differential, a group of players, again, Jonathan Rodriguez hurt for the year, absolutely killed them, no doubt, right? Bring in central midfield depth, Felipe Carballo tears his ACL right off the bat, right? Brutal stuff. I like the way that they've built the team through the middle window, right? Christoph Velde looks like an absolute baller. I think Matthias Rojas, if you give him enough time to play, I think he will be a very, very good player. Get Jonathan Rodriguez back, you'll be okay, but they are looking older. Diego Chara, about to be 40. right? We're not even talking wrong side of 30 anymore. We're talking wrong side of 40, which is crazy. They've got some youth pieces, but again, it's a lot of experience, it's a lot of age, and you wonder what comes next for this group. Are they gonna try and go young? Are they gonna, lean into the experience? What do you think?
I don't dislike what Portland has on the roster. As you said, I think there's a lot of talent in this team. They added good people in the midseason. They were a little bit unfortunate to have certain players get injured, but I still feel like there's a lot to work with here. I just feel like Neville's not the guy. I think that's just the conclusion here. I think you gotta try it out with a new coach next year, in my opinion.
Ooh, okay.
Um, I think I understand that there's nothing he could really do when Jonathan Rodriguez gets hurt for the year. But I still feel like there's enough talent on this team to have done maybe a little bit more than just squeak into a play-in game and then bounce out in the first round. I mean, I look at the U22s for this team, and I genuinely feel like that might be the best U22 group in the entire league. Like Anthony Ayala and Kelsey as your U22 group, like that's fantastic. All three of those guys are great players, and I feel like they contribute a decent amount to this team. I mean, Anthony had 12 goals. Ayala was 33 matches played for them. Kelsey also doing what he does, not playing a lot of minutes, but scoring goals when he gets out there. And I think they have good designated players too. I think there's going to be a little bit of a balance of trying to squeeze in guys into the other spaces in the salary cap. But to me, the biggest thing I think is just I think they need a new coach. I don't think Neville's getting much more out of this team.
I don't disagree with you, but I also would like to revisit your comment on they've got good designated players because the production out of this designated player group, specifically one David da Costa, is very underwhelming.
Yeah, I agree
Since
on
since the end of July into the playoffs, so we're looking at
that.
3.5 months, 0 goals, 0 assists. That is not designated player quality, my friend. Right? And um, that worries me, right? If I'm there and that's the guy I'm going to build around, that worries me. I think Christoph Velde is high potential. I think he'll be a good player, and I'm hoping that having chemistry between them eventually pays off. But I'm worried that David DaCosta is trying to fill Evander's shoes and isn't going to get it done, and that is going to be difficult to for any coach to build around because you have a system that was built around a player who wanted out, and now you have all these players who are supposed to play off of this one guy. Uh-oh, now he's not here. What do we do now? So, um, yeah, definitely a bit worried on that end, but I'm real interested to see where they go with it because there are, like you mentioned, there are pieces that they've gone here, right? David Ayala is a good younger player. Finn Sermon came in and did a decent job. Anthony, solid, right? Kevin Kelsey, high potential. And then there's kind of a gap, right? You got David DeCosta who's 24 and can start giving you minutes, but or start producing at a higher level if he steps up. But everybody else is pushing towards 30, pushing towards 35, some pushing towards 40. It's like, is this the team who finished in eighth place on a -7 goal differential that you want to have run back again and say, oh yeah, we're going to run it back one more time? Like Seattle, when they had players at this level, were pushing the top two of the West. These guys are pushing the play-in game. Is that the team you want to run back, or do you want to start turning it over early? I would lean towards the latter personally, but I'm not in charge. I just sit here and talk about soccer on the internet. So
Yep. And with takes like that, you're going to continue to sit here talking about it on the internet.
maybe, but let's end it there because we have talked way too much. But I really had a good time. I miss doing stuff like this. We don't talk about games nearly as much anymore because there's so much news that breaks, and um, you know, it's just difficult to keep an eye on all of the games. But I really enjoyed sitting down chatting with you about some games and some soccer. And make sure if you enjoyed it, you give us a follow on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, because that's where we do most of our engagement. And make sure you follow us wherever you get your pods because our next episode will be predicting the end of or rather the round two games coming up. So all four conference semifinals. So if you enjoyed it, thanks so much. Leave us a like, a rating, all the good stuff that we need. We need to do like a Spotify rating something again. That was good. But thanks so much for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.